scroll down the screen, and whose photo do I see? Mine. Advertising this session. And it's like, okay, screenshot, one. Here I am with Dr. Nelson. But it was that instant wave of imposter syndrome, of Kara, seriously, who do you think you are? That you're on the same page as Dr. Brendan Nelson. So I have to admit, this stuff actually still catches me out. So what are we discussing today? We're discussing who gets imposter syndrome, what is imposter syndrome, and what's in my personal fear toolkit. So those that came to the last session, you would have known that it was very heavy in facts and figures and theory around the psychology of social media. This is the exact opposite. It's very practical. That does not mean that it is not grounded in good research and good practice. And why is that? I'm a business consultant, but I actually hold a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Flinders University. So the stuff that I use, the toolkit that I use and that I teach, comes from my training in psychology, my personal experience, and reading and researching. I also hold a graduate diploma of management. I'm also a mentor in Ventador here for the MBI. And I'm a brand ambassador for the Social Media Marketing Institute of Australia, or South Australia. So, why imposter syndrome and why fear and why business? Because when most business owners come to me, they come to me to understand social media in the main or to grow their business in one way or another. The issue is that a lot of the times they have fear standing in their way to actually do it. They have the skills, they have the techniques, they have the technology. They also have themselves getting in their own way. Now, most of my clients, it's about actually promoting their work on social media. But it also comes across as sales pitches, sales meetings, general pitches. Anywhere where you've got to stand up and promote what you do, how you do it, and why somebody should be listening to you. This is one of the quotes that I used to really enjoy. I used to use it to motivate myself. That, you know what, Kara, you are far too smart to be the only thing standing in your way. There's a lot of irony to that when it comes to imposter syndrome. The men in the room, you are not immune to imposter syndrome. However, the research does say the majority of people who identify with having imposter syndrome are high-achieving women. So the research shows that the aspects of a high-achieving woman is someone who works hard and who is diligent. Now, that's not gender-specific. Men work hard and men are diligent, but they're the two main traits that come across. I myself have gone through treatment for anxiety, and when I was under the care of a psychologist, she actually had trouble diagnosing me. So she sent me off to a psychiatrist. We had 3 sessions, the psychiatrist and I. There was one diagnosis he could come back with. He said, Kara, you're a type A personality. That's your diagnosis. I'm a high-achieving woman. That's me. So I am set for imposter syndrome. Just because I'm a high-achieving woman doesn't mean that I will get it. Doesn't mean that I get it to the same extent as others. One of my friends is high up in academia here in South Australia. She is at the top of her game. She is the previous president of the international body for her industry, and she's struck down by imposter syndrome. It happens to all of us, no matter where, or a lot of us, no matter where we are in the game. But the keys are that we work hard and we're diligent. The problem is with a lot of this is that we abide by what we believe somebody else's standard is. We're trying to live up to their standard, and that is where we fall down. Because that's not the actual standard. That standard that we're trying to achieve doesn't exist. It could be our boss. It could be our stakeholders. We just apply a standard that isn't actually real. And we work towards that. So what is imposter syndrome? In our brains, it can sound a lot like, I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough. I'm going to get caught out. They're going to catch me out as the fake or the phony that I know that I am. That's my girlfriend's favourite one. She gets waited to be tapped on the shoulder, walking around the university. I'm told to leave. She says to me, look, Kara, I'd rather be walking around in tracky dacks and sneakers. But, I'm afraid of being caught out. I have to play a particular game. This isn't real. I didn't make this great thing happen. I just got lucky. These are some of the stories we tell ourselves. And this is imposter syndrome coming up time and again. But it is the story. And that story comes from either childhood, but essentially it comes from years of being told that you're not enough, that you won't live up to a particular standard, being looked over for things, or being the victim of tall poppy syndrome. And I've got to thank Professor Norman Bedler, who was my social psychology lecturer here in first year psych, for introducing me to tall poppy syndrome. Not that he gave it to me, he was the one that first described it to me. So, what's in my toolkit? So I said I was going to share a story. So as you saw, I'm the ambassador for the Social Media Marketing Institute of Australia. And each year they have a conference on social media. Now, whilst I'm an ambassador, I still have to pitch. They're not going to put somebody up on stage that's not going to deliver the goods, that can't speak, and doesn't have the knowledge behind them. So the first thing that I had to do to speak at their conference in Sydney, and this was my first interstate speaking engagement, I'd spoken at social media conferences here in Adelaide, was pitch. And so I sat down, and I speak on the psychology of social media. Like I said, it's not a well-known area because it's not well-known, it's not generally well accepted neither. But the core principle is understanding the psychology of the end user, if you're wondering exactly what it is. So I sat down and wrote the pitch. And then I sat and I waited to press send. And I was gripped by fear. The same fear that when I applied to be a mentor at the New Venture Institute, had my finger hovering over the enter button before I pressed enter. It was the imposter syndrome coming back, saying, Kara, who do you think you are? You're not good enough. You're not going to fit in. They're going to catch you out to be the fake or the phony that you know that you are. But what I did was aligned with my core value. And my core value is courage. And I just remembered I've got to task you guys at the end. So what I want you to think about is what your core value is. See, because what happens is we get stuck down here in fear, and we're trying to achieve our goals, and we bounce between the two. The problem is, and these are drivers that I've worked out of human behaviour, and they exist, whether it's for yourself, your clients, your staff, your audience, those kinds of things, and they stack. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they stack. And if anyone's seen the image of success in business, and it looks like a straight line, and then it's got the reality next to it, and it looks like someone's plopped a piece of spaghetti on it, there's this weird convoluted line, that's this bouncing. But what we have in the middle is values. Values are truth, the universal, and they drive our behaviour. The good thing about values is that when we are acting in alignment with our values, we're acting in truth with ourselves. When we act against our values, what's called dissonance. It's where you kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit unsure, and a little bit scared. That's when you're acting and behaving outside of your core values. So my core value is courage. That's not what gets me up on stage. Like I said, I'm not afraid of public speaking. But courage is what gets me to hit the enter button to submit a pitch, to get me to apply for a mentoring role here. It's courage. And acting from courage every single time gets my job done. And it also means that I'm acting in alignment with who I am and what I want to achieve. And it makes achieving my goals a lot easier because I'm being true to myself. So have a think. What is your core value? What do you always want to act from? What place? There's honesty, integrity, love, truth, courage. These are core values that it doesn't matter what cultural background, what kind of upbringing we have. If we were to ask anyone in this room, we would all have a very similar understanding of what that value is. So I've submitted it, got the answer back. Congratulations, Kara, you're coming to Sydney in September. Hope you're ready. Then I had to sit down and write the talk, which was fine. Been writing on the Psychologist social media at this time for 5 years. I had the content. I knew the content. The day before I was set to fly out, I was sitting there in front of my laptop going over my slides and going over my slides and going over my slides and going over my slides again and again and again until I felt panic set in. The thing is that I realised that just the day before I had a meeting with a client and I'd gone through all of that content. I was afraid that I'd forget the dates and I'd forget the names. Ironically, a fortnight ago, I had the exact same fear, that I would forget the names of the research and the dates that that research was published. So even though the day before I flew out to Sydney, or 2 days before I flew out to Sydney, I delivered the content off the cuff like that, the day before I was in a flat panic, trying to make sure I remembered every single word, every single transition. And so I caught myself. I did what I did with my kids when they were toddlers. I have 2 teenagers now. I diverted myself. The old bait and switch routine. I shut my laptop and I took myself off for lunch. An hour, but I got myself out of the office and into a different environment, away from my laptop that was causing me the anxiety at that point in time. Might have had a little word to myself and said, Kara, you actually know what you're talking about. You don't actually have to be afraid. And anyway, you've got notes underneath all of your slides. Get caught out. It doesn't have to be taking yourself out for an hour. It doesn't have to be taking yourself out for lunch. It can be just the small thing of taking yourself over to a different desk talking to someone, grabbing a glass of water or a glass of coffee. Change the task and change the environment. So I arrived in Sydney. Got to admit, I'm an Adelaide girl through and through. Sydney's big smoke. I've lived in the US, but Sydney seems to kind of intimidate me, which is really weird because I actually don't like being in Sydney. Went to a location that I had no idea where it was, but thankfully the Uber driver did. What I was going to was a VIP dinner. Now, it's not unusual as a speaker to be invited to a dinner the night before. So I was all prepared to meet up with my speaking colleagues, chat about what was happening the next day, talk about what's happening in the industry, share ideas, actually just have a nice time. A few days beforehand, an email comes out saying it's a VIP event. Attendees at the conference have been given the opportunity to buy a seat at the table at the dinner. Cue panic. And Imposter Syndrome. Kara, who do you think you are? You're going to forget everything. You're not the biggest fish in the room. And by the way, there's all of these people who have bought space to chat with you. Okay. Thankfully, I have friends in the industry that actually speak on social media in the US. Cue Facebook message to one of them going, Brian, what do I do? I've been invited to this VIP dinner. People have been buying tickets to the dinner. I thought it was just a speaker dinner. At which point Brian, my friend, says to me, Kara, calm down. Just look at it as them buying consulting time. Okay, great. That's fine. I talked to somebody. I talked to a peer. Somebody that I respected in the industry, that had been there before and had been there often. And I was just able to switch. I knew that I wasn't alone. This was actually quite cool. Dinner went great, by the way. I wasn't on a table with any of the VIP guests. It was just us speakers, so I was fine. Came the event. So I'm at the event, great, no problem, the morning goes wonderfully well. I knew I was second up after lunch. I remember back to my psychology early on. Great, post-lunch dip, everyone's blood's going to be rushed to their stomach rather than their heads to digest the food. And I'm talking about the psychology of social media, not exactly the most riveting of topics. Very dry. Okay, and I prepared accordingly in my speech, broke it up. So we were told to be in the rooms half an hour beforehand to be mic'd up. No problem, I've been mic'd up before, that wasn't a problem. So I'm sitting there, waiting, and I look up at the screen, and there's two representatives from Facebook. So not only did I have to deal with post-lunch dip, but I had to back up Facebook speaking at a social media conference. Great. No pressure. So what did I do? Anyone practice yoga? I did square breathing. So it's a commonly used technique in pentathletes and also sports shooters. If you slow your breathing, you slow your heart rate. And so I breathed in for the count of 3. I held it for the count of 3. I breathed it out for the count of 3. And I held it for the count of 3. And I did it just then. And I repeated it 3 times to slow my heart rate down. Because I knew that if I continued to sit there with a pounding heart, I was just going to be a jittering mess by the time I got up on stage. Even though I don't have a fear of public speaking, I have imposter syndrome and the fear of being caught out and called a fake or a phony, which I know I'm not. I know that stuff. And facing up after Facebook is not the easiest task. So those girls were nailing it, seriously. So that worked. And I'm still sitting there, and the nerves start to come in as the ladies from Facebook start winding up, and it gets closer and closer to them coming up on stage. And so I give myself a little pep talk, and this is actually one that I do quite often. Kara, get off self. Sounds a bit rough, a bit harsh, but what it is you guys aren't here to see me. You're here for the knowledge. So this is not actually about me at all. This is about the knowledge, which anyone can gather. Just at this point in time, it happens to be me. So when it comes to a product or a service, and you're trying to pitch or deliver that to a prospect, you're not trying to sell yourself, really. You're trying to sell the product or the service. Get off self. The other thing is that, and one of the speaking coaches that I had very early on, he said to me, your audience doesn't deserve your nerves. They don't deserve it. So don't make it about yourself. It's about the audience. Sorry guys, you are actually all up here with me at the moment. So get off self. Doesn't just apply when you're speaking, pitching. It's when you're trying to deliver a product or a service, because that is all I'm doing at the moment. I'm delivering a service. I love this boy. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our dark, that frightens us the most. Is that we are powerful beyond measure. And I've got to say, one of the things I was going to say at the start here was, I am actually grateful for you guys attending, especially the women in the room, because I know that there are a lot of lunches around for International Women's Day. I've already attended a breakfast at my daughter's school for International Women's Day. So I actually thought this was a really good quote to put up. Men in the room, it equally applies to you guys. It's your life, it's your abilities, it's your skills, it's your knowledge. I'm currently going through this with my husband who's applying for a new job. He's incredibly intelligent and has been underpaid for way too long. It's his life that scares him the most, not what he can't do. So after the speaking engagement, after the summer, there was an awards dinner. Now, one of my roles that I put my hand up for as ambassador was assessing social media campaigns for the Institute's awards. And each year, marketing agencies can submit their campaigns to be judged. Now, we're not talking the small end of the street. Previous winners include Telstra, the Australian Ballet, and Weber Barbecues. So they are big industries, big agencies that actually submit. And I said, you know what? I'd like to be a judge and look primarily at user psychology and how it applies to it. So I did. So I bought myself a new outfit, got ready, made the cardinal sin of trying to apply false eyelashes for the first time at an event. I never do that. Never, ever. They didn't work, by the way. I couldn't get them on. It took me 20 minutes to get one side, and then I couldn't get the other side to match. I was like, that's it, they're gone. I can't waste any more time. So anyway, all fracked up, ready to go. Walk in, find my seat on the seating plan, and I walk in, and I swear every single eye was looking at me. Every single eye. So I turned around and hightailed it out, checked where my seat was, had a little bit of a talk to myself. And I've got to thank Simon Sinek for teaching me this. And there was a video that he did, and it's this strange video. It's not overly well produced. It's him standing against a white wall. But what he says is that fear and excitement feel exactly the same way in our bodies. And they do. Our heart races, our hands get sweaty, a little bit of a tightness in our chest or in our throat. Fear and excitement feel the exact same way in our body. So what did I do? What did I do? I told myself that it wasn't fear that I was feeling walking into that room, scared. It was excitement. I was actually excited. I'd done the hard part. I was actually there to enjoy myself. I wasn't receiving any awards. I was judging them, and I'd done that work, and I'd spoken that day, and it all went well, in spite of the fact that the technology didn't work for the first 15 minutes of my presentation, and the tech guys were standing around in front of me trying to get everything to work. Thanks, bro. You're brilliant. I had to tell myself fear and excitement feel the exact same way. And so from then I was able to walk in. Thing is those eyes are still looking at me. And I could swear they said, Kara, who do you think you are? What the hell are you doing here? We arrived in packs, I swear, all night. They travelled in packs of 5 or 10, going to the selfie booth or the big screen to have their photos taken. It's like, oh my God, okay. And then I walked, I knew what table number I was on. I found my table, except it was the head table. I should have realised I'm one of the judges. They would have put me on the head table, except they'd scattered the other judges around. So I was seated on the head table, and boy did I feel the looks of, Kara, who do you think you are? Why are you seated on the head table? We don't know who you are. You're not part of any agency we know. Okay, not a problem. What it was that old story that I had running around in my brain. Oh, Kara, who do you think you are? We all have different stories that apply to us when it comes to fear and imposter syndrome. But it's recognising those stories. And I've spent a long time trying to break those stories down. And in fact, after that episode, I actually spent a lot of time breaking that story down of Kara, who you think you are. Going through standard cognitive behavioural therapy techniques and analysing it, breaking it down. Is it true? Is it real? What evidence do I have? What is the actual story? What's the reality of it? Yes, I am smart. Yes, I am good at what I do. Yes, I should be standing up here speaking. And yes, my photo should be on the page of Encounter magazine with Dr. Brendan Nelson. I'm not saying I'm as good as him. I'm just saying, I deserve to be acknowledged for what I do just as much as he does. It was a story that I held as a truth, that I set as a belief, that I let guide my behaviour. You know how I said earlier that courage was my value? Who do you think you are, for me, was a belief that I allowed to direct my behaviours. The thing is with our brains are actually really lazy. And they like to fill in the gaps. So if we don't have any actual evidence, we will go back to those stories that we tell ourselves. And we'll fill in the gaps. So what happened was I got up on stage. I was announced as a judge. Then a little while later, I was invited up on stage and announced as ambassador. And I swear every other person that was looking at me afterwards, as I walked around the dining hall, was looking at me going, oh yeah, I know who you are now. Good, great, yeah, you deserve to be here. Whereas when I originally walked in the room, I thought they were all saying, who the hell do you think you are? You don't deserve to be here. My brain was filling the gaps in the knowledge that it had with the story that I had been playing myself. But it wasn't necessarily the case. Like the idea of imposter syndrome, where we live up to a standard that we believe is being imposed by somebody else, we can't actually live up to it. I was trying to live up to a story that I thought other people were imposing on me, but it wasn't actually the case. I don't know that they were thinking that about me. I just thought they were. So remember that your brain fills in the gaps with the stories that you tell yourself. This is a long quote. It's often called the Man in the Arena speech. It's taken from an address by Theodore Roosevelt. I have Brene Brown to thank for introducing me to this quote. It's how she came to the title of her book, Daring Greatly. And if any of you had the opportunity to see, and do like Brene Brown, if you've not had the opportunity to see her 99U speech, where she talks about clammy creatives, please go and YouTube it. So what it says is that it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows that in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. The credit belongs to the man who is in the arena, whose face is marred by blood and dust and sweat. And he's daring greatly. So the last thing I have in my toolkit, and this is where I wanted you guys to do something, is, and I use this actually often, is that, let's So when I first came across this, I was online a fair bit. And the places where I felt fear most was when I was confronted. Yeah, thank you. Was when I was confronted by trolls, haters, and people who were doubting what I was doing. And so what I had is I had a little sticky post-it note with 3 names on it. One of those was my girlfriend, who in academia, because she is in a male-dominated field. She's in her early 40s, but damn it, her face is marred by sweat and mud and blood, and she is in the arena getting her ass kicked. And whenever anyone commented or questioned my ability, I looked at their name and I looked at the list of people that I had who I knew were in the arena getting their ass kicked. They didn't have to be in my industry. She's not in the same industry. But she's in there getting her ass kicked, and you know what? If I went to her, she had my back. She would say to me, Kara, I get it. It sucks. And this is what I do. So what I'm asking you to do is have a think of 3 people. I say to my coaching clients, I don't have to be on that list. It doesn't have to be a mentor or a boss. Because to be perfectly honest, my business coach, I never saw her as being in the arena. She always said to me, Kara, you know what? And we actually went through speaker training together. Kara, I want to get into speaking. She doesn't speak. She's not in the arena getting her ass kicked every day. Her face is not marred by blood and sweat and dust. So whenever you find yourself questioning because of somebody else's opinion of you or what you're doing, have a look at that list and ask yourself, is their name on that list? And if it's not on that list, do they really have a say in what you're doing and how you're going to react? Because if their name's not there, as far as I'm concerned, they're not in the arena. Their opinion really doesn't count for much, to be perfectly honest. So, that is my toolkit. I do have a few more up my sleeve. The other day, I really got annoyed with myself. So I went out for a walk. I had to get physical. I had to do some exercise because I spent way too much time in my head. If I was to pick 3 that I use time and again, the very first one always comes up trumps. Because if I'm not acting from courage, I'm not being true to myself. And I'm letting myself down. And that's just a horrible place to be. Especially as a mother, I have to act from courage. And I've got to say that on Wednesday I came to the thank you dinner for the Institute, and I walked in and I was surrounded by men in their 50s, white men in their 50s. And I have a daughter who wants to get into engineering. And I went, Kara, you have to do this. You have to have the courage to stand up in your field as a woman and do it for your daughter. What kind of role model are you? If you're telling her to be brave and get into the field that she's really interested in, what kind of role model are you if you sit back and go, I can't do that? I have to act from courage. So once again, have a think about what your core value is or where you're going to act from. One of my clients sits integrity. She needs to act from a place of integrity. For me, if I'm acting from courage, I'm acting from integrity. The next one is getting off self. Gotta be honest, I tell myself that one a lot. It's not all about you, Kara. It's about what you're delivering, what you have to say, and the information, and the difference that you want to make. That's nothing to do with me. And finally, I don't have that post-it note anymore, but I know the people who are in the arena, and can I be honest? My husband is not on that list. My girlfriend is still on that list, and my list is getting smaller. And that's totally okay. It's totally okay to have a short list, and that's the reason why I gave you a small post-it note. Because I don't want you to have 10 people on that list. I want you to have 1 or 2 or 3. As long as you've got someone there. And like I said, they don't have to be in your industry, are they? My girlfriend is not in the industry. She's certainly at a level far above where I am. But she's in the arena. So that is the list. Probably the hardest thing that I have ever done is working on my story and the stories that I've told myself. Like I said, it is cognitive behavioural therapy to break the story down, analyse it, look at the truth. Is it real? And then I rewrite my story. My story used to be, Kara, put your hand down. Don't stand up. Don't stand out. Who do you think you are? You're too smart. Let somebody else answer. And in fact, even as a graduate, I was a graduate in the Australian public sector, I was told, you don't deserve to be here. You haven't done your time. No, instead I spent 6 years at university. I may not have been there from the ground up from 16, but I spent 6 years at uni. So you know what? That buys me a fast pass. So I had to rewrite my story. But know that that story, your brain uses to fill in the gaps. And it's actually rewriting that story that makes these other ones easier to do. And it makes presenting and speaking and pitching and overcoming fear and imposter syndrome a lot easier. So that's it. That is me. I am Kara Lambert all over social media, except for YouTube. I'm still trying to get as many subscribers as I can to get my vanity URL. On my website, I have a number of articles, not just about psychology of social media, but also about imposter syndrome and fear. And if you want to email me, that's my email address. Please do. I actually really like to hear your successes. I really do, because to be perfectly honest, whilst I can teach businesses about the psychology of social media, it's this stuff that I actually really get the biggest joy out of. Because it's seeing people getting out of their own way and being able to do the things that they truly want to be able to achieve and do.